Our story starts off in 1865. It's a story about a town called the Five Points, a man named Brad, his brother named Luke, and the monster who took their mother's life. What is going on, everybody? Is the source material back again, and today we're going to be reviewing a manga that caught my eye quite by accident, actually, and turned out to be one of the best historical mangas I've ever read. It isn't set to feudal Japan or Dark Ages England. It's set right after the end of the American Civil War, some 160 some years ago. You see, back then, European immigrants fled the discrimination and poverty of their countries for a shot at the American dream. And we just so happen to be focusing on one such immigrant dreamer, Edward King. You see, at 19 years of age, King and his best friend G. McDowell set up from Ireland to the USA, and they landed in New York City's 6th Ward, smack down the worst slum in the world, the Five Points. There, the two starry eyed boys became cold, hardened men. They built and grew the largest and most influential gang in the Five Points, the Gravediggers, and for a time, all was going well. That is if you count mugging and murders as going well. But for a pair of crime bosses, life was sweet. That was until Edward King betrayed his best friend Jean and left the Five Points. Well, not before brutally murdering his wife and abandoning his two sons. Standing over their mother's grave, those two children swore to themselves that they would protect each other and one day make it out of the Five Points and live good lives. But unknown to the younger brother, the older brother made two promises that day: to make it out of the Five Points and to kill Edward King. But finding a man who doesn't want to be found isn't easy or cheap, and the only way to make money in the Five Points is to get your hands dirty. So every day while Luke was at the dock working for money, without his brother's knowledge, under the guise of looking for work, Brad would go out and kill people for the gravediggers. No target was too big. Everyone fell to him eventually. $10 was his fee, and he began to be known throughout all corners of the Five Points as the gravedigger's best hitman, the Grim Reaper. He did this for 13 years. Years have passed and Luke is 16 and Brad is 20. Unknown to Luke, Brad is still searching for his father and taking jobs for the gravediggers. Over the years, Luke has grown to hate the gangs and anyone associated with them. Because of this, Brad has kept his identity as the Grim Reaper a secret from his brother. As far as Luke knows, his brother is just a job hunting deadbeat. That is until G. McDowell's son, Kip, and the Grim Reaper get into a little altercation. To get revenge for the shame he faced that day at the hands of the Grim Reaper, Kip made the worst decision anyone in the Five Points could ever make. He revealed Luke's identity as the brother of the Grim Reaper to the second in command of the second biggest gang in the Five Points, the Iron Butterflies, leading Luke to be kidnapped and Brad risking all-out war between the two gangs to rescue him, revealing his identity as the Grim Reaper to his brother and giving us the second hardest panel in the entire manga. Now, with the two biggest gangs in the Five Points of war, a certain man rolls into town with a certain piece of merchandise. This is Edward King. By the way, this is the hardest panel of the manga. He rents the Gatling gun effortlessly slung over his shoulder to Kip, who clearly isn't overcompensating for something. He uses it to decimate both gravediggers and iron butterflies alike in the battle, leaving everyone dead or wounded. Everyone but the Grim Reaper. After the battle and the capture of G. McDowell, who the police use as a scapegoat to take the fall for the entire war, the two brothers now have a fresh lead on Edward King's trail. They leave the Five Points and hunt down their father. The war has given both brothers a new perspective on life. Luke realizes that his father can't be left to continue his reign of murders across the country, and Brad learns that he has to trust his brother to have his back. And have his back he does. In the year they spend on the road, Luke becomes one of the best shots in the country, quickly surpassing his brother in use of firearms and becoming a menace to evil all over the country. But even with their combined skills, their journey isn't easy. Their journey leads them to some of the worst places in frontier America. They stop greedy land barons and fight the fastest quick draw in the West, in St. Louis, Missouri. Fend off cattle rustlers and fight prejudice against freed slaves in Kansas, and even help the Native Americans from American armed troops in Montana. And at different points in the journey, both Brad and Luke are beaten unconscious. To top it all off, Their father is one of the most dangerous criminals in America. He is the leader of the Crimson Gang, with a $15,000 bounty on his head. He once let himself get captured, collected his own reward money, and just when he was about to be hanged, had a sniper shoot the rope. He then proceeded to kidnap a congressman and hold the entire city to ransom by hijacking a giant Navy vessel and raining cannon fire on the city. The boys went through a lot on the road. They found family and lost it just as quick. But it was all building up to the day that they could stand face to face with their father. Now it's time for ratings. This is the part in the show where I give my completely unbiased and professional opinion about the manga. Greenblood as a whole is a great manga. Throughout reading it, I couldn't really find a flaw. Even though it's quite short, its pacing didn't seem rushed at all. The story flows smoothly, and every character, even though they only seem to be there for a couple of chapters, seemed well fleshed out. The mangaka also seems to have put a lot of thought into the historical reference. I do wish it was a bit longer though. The art as well is truly something. The word beautiful doesn't necessarily come to mind when I think about Greenblood, and it doesn't need to. The art in this manga gives a sort of old-timey cowboyish feel. It fits perfectly with the aesthetic of cowboy saloons and gunslingers. I was a bit confused at first with the lines that seem to show up a lot in the panels. I mean, I get the idea. It does give a sort of old vintage feel to it, but for some of the panels, they seem almost like an afterthought, just thrown in there to match the rest of the art. But for a lot of them, it actually complements the art really well. It gives it a sort of gritty, almost cinematic feel. Tones become more serious and the art overall becomes more, well, real. With all these factors in consideration, I'll be giving Greenblood an 8 over 10. Thank you all for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe and have a great day. As always, it's the source material signing out. God bless.